evening to all of you, ma'am. Thank you for sparing your time and coming over. A lot of participants are also joining in, so we wait for like around 1 more minute, 2 minutes before starting. So, how have been the lockdown conditions in your unlock conditions rather in your area, ma'am? Bangalore, how has been Bangalore, ma'am? Ma'am, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I just unmuted.
So, how?
Slowly opening up, but there is still a lot of hesitation to step out because
Yeah. So how
cases are rising.
Yeah, Delhi is
Bad, very bad.
it's exploding with numbers. Bangalore, I think it's a little controlled.
Well, it was, but now that travel has been allowed, people who are coming in from other states, they're bringing it.
So
in fact, today Al-Sur market has been closed down. So
yeah.
So I think Gurgaon, Gurugram, we were going the other day. The shops were open, but they're all empty. People are not coming out.
Yeah, people are not stepping out yet.
Yeah, so I think it's like only local markets, basic necessities. People are moving, and that should be the concept. Ideally, अभी इतना safe नहीं है. Once the unlock is done, people feel कि okay, let's go and start meeting people. So I think we'd rather start. Simi ma'am is going to join in a while. So again, a very good evening and a very warm welcome to all the panelists and our audience who have spared their time to be with us today. This is the webinar session, Reinventing Learning Part 6. And this is your host, Malshri from Ignited Minds. This is a STEM education organization that conducts hands-on activities in various schools. So before we actually, start with the introduction of the esteemed panelists, I would just like to connect with our audience. This is a customary thing that we've been doing. So to know what kind of audience we have, so I'm going to launch a poll, and the poll question says, whom do we have as audience today? So this is going to flash on the screen for around 10 seconds. And okay, so we have mostly educators and a blend of both. So which is a brilliant mix, because with the online schooling mode and homeschooling thing going on, we need parents as well as educators to, symbiotically handle the situation and get the best learning outcomes in the children. So moving on to introducing our esteemed panelists, we would just like to introduce first Dr. Neerija Raghavan, who is from Bengaluru, and she's the founder director of Thinking Teacher. She is a PhD in chemistry from Princeton University and a postgraduate from IIT Kanpur. She has authored several books. I Wonder Why and I Wonder How with CBT, Children Book Trust. Besides that, she's been active in curriculum designing and content writing. Ma'am loves to write during her spare time on topics of science and travel and spirituality. So this is a brilliant mix, ma'am. Ma'am, we would like to know what exactly is Thinking Teacher about.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Thinking Teacher is basically an enterprise which reaches out to teachers across schools, and the focus is reflective practice, because as an experienced teacher, my experience has been that a teacher can very easily slip into the mechanical mode.
That's true.
Because when we teach the same content year after year to batch after batch, it's very easy for us to stop thinking about it because we get so efficient at it. Yeah. And a teacher who stops thinking is a very dangerous teacher to have. Because a teacher who stops thinking cannot have students who think.
Start to think. That's really interesting. Okay, that's another thing I had been watching was that you are a part of team of 5-minute fable videos, and they're very cute animated videos for children, which I happen to see on the LinkedIn. So these are 5-minute videos of which, ma'am has been contributing her, she's been putting her efforts into that also. So welcome on the panel, ma'am, and thank you so much for joining. So, yeah. So next on the panel, we have Shivani Sahni, ma'am, who is the principal of GD Goenka Public School in Bahadurgarh, Haryana. And she has been a marketing professional and who has moved into education field. She's been there for past like a decade and associated with the school since its inception, right, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. So ma'am is a very, very able administrator and an excellent team leader. And ma'am, you like to write blogs and short stories and poems. So what do you call your blog?
What do I call my blog?
Yeah,
It's named Sentiment. Actually, this was given to me by my juniors during my college time.
Okay.
So they called me that I'm a emotional person yet cool like mint. So it was Sentiment. So hence, since then in all my writings in every place I use this as sentiment.
So we can search you as Sentiment, right?
Yes, absolutely. You can search me as Sentiment.
Oh, welcome on board, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction.
No, ma'am. There actually so much to speak, but we are short of time. So because all the award list, if I start saying, then it'll take the whole webinar time.
No, I'm really humbled. Thank you so much.
So the next on the panel we have Simi Srivastava, ma'am, who is the master storyteller, and she is the founder director of Katashala. And while we all thought that stories are meant for little children and maybe till primary, she has taken it to a whole different level. She has been storytelling in IIMs and she in national law universities. So we need to learn a lot, and of course in schools. So she's been using her stories as a parenting tool, as a therapeutic tool, and of course to engage children to get the best learning outcomes. So ma'am has also authored, she's been authoring a lot of books also. So welcome on board, ma'am.
Thank you. And it's lovely meeting all of you. Yeah.
So next on the panel, we have Miss Monica Kochar, ma'am. She is a math consultant. So that's the very interesting part. That is, she is combining multiple intelligence and creativity with math, which is a very, very unique combination. And I used to think that maths is a very kind of boring subject or difficult for most of us. It's a tough subject, but when you blend creativity into it, so it must be really reaching out to people. She's associated with Sri Aurobindo Society and also with the Oxford University Press, and she's done her postgraduate in graduation in pure mathematics, right, ma'am? Yeah. So, ma'am, are you doing something called humane math? We would like to know about that part.
Okay, so this is a phrase given by an ex-student of mine. She met me and she said that the way you teach maths, you're more concerned about the humans than maths, and therefore what we always called your way of teaching humane maths.
Okay.
And I have always been concerned with what is the potential of the student. And I was also always very concerned that their obsession with being good in maths and scoring in maths shouldn't take them away from what their natural drive is. So let's say a linguist or a language expert shouldn't stop doing language. I'll just give an example. A student of mine who was a child prodigy in music used to spend 5 hours a day for math because she said, I'm so bad at it, and half an hour in playing her piano. And I told her, reverse it. Spend as much time in music, and whenever you want to take a break for half an hour or something, do math. Wow. And I found again and again that when you take care of the human, maths takes care of itself. Because the stress of learning maths goes down, interest goes up, and when you don't feel judged in a space, you naturally want to learn. Absolutely. And students like these always did well in everything, including math. So it's not like their scores went
Brilliant.
down; their scores actually
So
went up.
it's kind,
So
you know,
my
you get
students called it.
more stressed up you get, the less
Absolutely,
productivity there is. So
absolutely.
yeah. So ma'am, you have
So
designed a lot of curricula also with your,
yeah,
multiple intelligence. Yeah. So I read about that. So welcome on panel, ma'am.
thank you
Next
so
we
much.
have
Thank you for having
Anupama Mehtani ma'am, who is a biology educator in the Shiv Nadar School, and she has been teaching since past 2 decades in different schools from Bengaluru to Delhi, moved to different places, and she is extremely passionate about this subject. And of course, being a senior teacher, she also guides the junior ones to design different innovative ways and include technology with the subject. So that's a very, very interesting part. We would like to know a lot about it because ma'am, we can't
Definitely.
do without it now.
I know.
It's going
Yes.
to
With this
blend in.
lockdown, yes.
Yes. So
Look,
welcome
thank
on
you.
board, ma'am. So
Thank you.
just to set the backdrop and the agenda of today, I'm sure नानी की कहानियां सबको याद है आज तक, and we have been in that generation fortunately when we used to live with our grandparents, dadi nani, who used to be spending a lot of time telling us patiently stories about different things, and we can still recall them. So the idea today is that we would be the best way to engage students during online learning is storytelling, apart from a lot of other tools that of course we will be talking about. But storytelling can be a big help when you are trying to engage your child, your students, and you can't see them face to face, and you need to connect with them, engage them, stop them from distractions. So this can be a very interesting tool, and how we can use these tools in these subjects, that's a very interesting part, because history is more of stories, geography can be taught story like, and languages can be totally stories only. But these science and biology and math can be taught through stories. This I had learned only when I connected with my esteemed panelists today. So over to Shivani Sani ma'am to let us know how she is guiding her teachers to make the sessions more interesting in her school. So ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Malashri. I really thank you, Ignited Minds, for giving me this platform where I can share my views and my learnings throughout my journey of being into marketing and into education. I believe you have the presentation. Can you please start with that?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Thank you. So very good evening to all my lovely audience. I hope you are all staying healthy and staying safe.
We'll just take a moment to start the video, ma'am.
Sure.
Just a minute. I will.
The first slide with the quote. Yeah, thank you. Shall I start, Malashri?
Yes, ma'am, you can start, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So there's this beautiful quote given by Alfred Mercier, which says, "What we learn with pleasure, we never forget." Stories are something that give us a lot of pleasure. I believe everybody would agree with me on this. And stories are one such tool that, Malashri, you'll have to keep moving on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And stories are amongst many tools to engage the children meaningfully and constructively in both online as well as offline modes. These days, we are working more on the online mode than the physical mode. So hence, using a lot of different kinds of teaching learning material, stories can enrich. Let us see how. So we can achieve multiple goals through stories. I'm going to be talking about achievement of academic learning objectives. So yummy, yummy in my tummy, yummy, yummy in my tummy. Yes, I sing this when I eat something on feeling hungry. Do you know about a hungry caterpillar? A very hungry caterpillar? There was this hungry caterpillar which was roaming around here and there on a sunny Monday morning. On this Monday morning, when the caterpillar is searching something to eat, the caterpillar finds an apple tree. The caterpillar climbs over it and plucks one apple and gobbles it. Hop! The caterpillar feels satisfied and goes off to sleep. The next day, Tuesday, the caterpillar is again hungry. So I'm not going to be narrating the whole story, but this is how we initiate a story and we go on talking of each different day, and each different day the caterpillar finds different fruits to eat in different numbers. So we talk of 3 plums, 4 strawberries, and go on till we reach on Saturday. Now on Saturday, we engage the children and we talk to them about eating junk. The caterpillar is tired of eating fruits now and he thinks of taking a break. So what the caterpillar eats on a Saturday is a piece of cheese, chocolate cake, and things like that. Now by the end of the day, the caterpillar feels hurt in his stomach. The stomach is aching and the caterpillar is sad. Caterpillar goes off to sleep and wakes up on the Sunday cloudy morning. On Sunday, the caterpillar finds a leaf to eat instead of the junk. And what happens now? The caterpillar feels much better. So this way, what we did, that we recapitulated the weeks of the days, the numbers, and then also spoke about the healthy eating, the benefits of healthy eating over the junk. So this is how we can incorporate multiple learning objectives. So 3 learning objectives got met through this story. We can use multiple teaching learning material here, like that of, I'm going to be talking to you about the teaching learning material to be used here to keep the children engaging. Let's move on. Let's have a look at a video now. To play this video.
Yeah, I'll just play it, ma'am.
You can minimize our faces so that we can see the video.
I think our faces are moved already.
I can see them. They're blocking the video.
Okay.
So my dear friends, okay, we're starting with the video.
Is there no audio?
No, there's no audio.
So you want me to play it again?
Yeah, I think. So through this video, dear friends, I would like to share that such videos can be used to start a dialogue with children. You know, we can give them open questions where they can come up with, where they can think creatively and come up with their answers. We can also give them choice probe through which they would think that which option to be picked up, and so this would enhance their critical thinking. We'll have to run the
slideshow again, ma'am.
the presentation.
Okay, just a minute.
So besides meeting the academic objectives, the stories can also help enhance a lot of other skills, like that of 21st century skills, which are also called life skills. A well-knit story, I would say, can encompass 4 domains, namely the cognitive domain, which is learning to know, the instrumental domain, which is learning to do, and the individual domain, learning to be, and the social domain, which is learning to live together. So all of these domains are essentially required for us to raise a powerful and a happy child. All my other co-panelists are going to be giving various examples how they are using the stories in various domains to build up these cognitive skills, the instrumental and the individual and the social skills amongst the children. There are certain points that I would like to mention here. Those are to be remembered while narrating stories.
Ma'am, again, the sharing is off again. I'll just.
So maybe what we can do is that we can share this presentation with the audiences so that they can refer to it later as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's a visible thing. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
it is visible. Okay. So Simi ma'am is of course going to throw a great light and great importance about the storytelling, but a few points that I would like to mention here are, it is important to vary the volume, pitch, and the tempo of your voice. You need to enunciate clearly and exaggerate expression. Expression is of utmost importance. Use your face, body, and gestures so the body speaks. Have a clear focus and maintain concentration. Maintain engaging eye contact with the audience and the individual listeners. Next, please. Use different exaggerated character voices. So on every time there is a new character, the voice needs to change. Use your space. Be as dynamic as you can. Pace yourself. You need to give proper pauses in between. Add on dramatic effect. Get silent at particular points. Use call and repeat technique. By call and repeat technique, I mean when I was saying yummy, yummy in my tummy, yummy, yummy in my tummy. So you can engage children also whenever. So every day when the caterpillar was eating something, the caterpillar was saying yummy, yummy in my tummy. And you engage the children also very actively to repeat the same. So this is a call and repeat technique. When I was talking about the teaching learning material, so it necessarily, the stories necessarily may not start with once upon a time. This was an age-old thing and quite a redundant thing that now we start the stories with once upon a time. Instead of starting the stories with once upon a time, we may use picture cards, we may use video, we may use audio, riddles, rhymes, raps, certain props. So all of these can be the possible cues that can be utilized to start a story and to keep children actively involved with it. So as we are on, we have really transformed from a physical space to an online space due to COVID. These are a few steps that I can share with you for digital storytelling process. You need to come up with an idea. So write a proposal first. The step 2 would be to research and explore, learn more about your idea, create and write a script about it. Make a story plan, gather the images, audios, videos, all the material that you would want to utilize, put them all together, and then start sharing your story. At the end, take a feedback or do a reflection session with your children. Can we move on? So thank you everyone for giving me a patient hearing. I believe this would be of some importance to you. Thank you so much.
course, it's
And
going to be, ma'am. Actually, you've told the entire methodology of how we are going to go about, teaching through a story. So, a lot of concepts can be weaved around a subject, and the little ones, the primary school children, like you just told, so many things can be incorporated in a single story. It could be numbers, it could be, not eating junk food, and so much more. So each story can have a lot of messages and takeaways from it. So we have to concentrate on what learning outcomes we want from a story and then design a story, basically, I think. Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah. So,
For
thank
the
you so
point of
much.
time, I did not narrate the entire story, but I would have really loved
No,
to.
but actually, we could get the hang of it, basically we are talking of weekdays, the numbers, and also junk food. And finally, it's becoming a butterfly, that is metamorphosis, also you're explaining. So it's a beautiful merger of biology and numbers and everything. Wonderful, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, ma'am, Neerja, ma'am, I would like to, ask you a big question. Science is a subject that is totally factual. For children, like, in primary, like Shivani ma'am had just narrated, we can probably weave stories. But as you come to class 6, 7, 8, and further, science becomes more of derivations, equations, and factual definitions. So it becomes a little stressful and a difficult subject to handle. Of course, children have an aptitude for it, but how can you make it more interesting? Like, how can you weave stories in science?
Yeah, so thank you for that. The possibility of bringing storytelling into science teaching is very feasible. And the reason being, the facts which we focus on and which textbooks are a compilation of, behind every fact, there is a story, if not many stories. And the reason I say this is, those facts they're not dead facts. They came through the hard work of some people who got together, or they did it alone, or they built on the work of people before them. And that's how those facts got discovered.
Very true.
So I just want to give you one example, which is very topical for the age that we are living in right now, the times we are going through right now. And I must seek the pardon of those who know the story already, because it's not nice to listen to a story you already know.
Oh, we would love to.
But today we are asked to wash our hands over and over again. And I want to tell you a story of how it was discovered that you need to wash your hands. Believe me, there is a story behind it. And it goes back to 1847, when there was this Hungarian physician called Dr. Semmelweis. And in those days, even in the Western world, they did not believe that infection is transferred through touch. They believed that infection is transferred only through the air. And because of that, people did not bathe every day. They did not think it necessary. So I don't know if you all have read these Jane Austen novels and all. People didn't bathe every day. They would wear perfume and lovely dresses and go about their work. So that was the age at that time. And Dr. Semmelweis was working as a physician in a hospital where pregnant mothers came for delivery. And there were two wards. One ward was attended to by medical students, and the other ward was attended to by midwives, ayas. So it was noticed that when these mothers were wheeled in for delivery, they begged Semmelweis. They said, please don't send us to the ward where medical students are delivering. Send us to the ward where midwives are delivering. So Semmelweis wondered, why are they asking this? So he looked a little closer. And then he noticed that there were many fatalities of both the mother and the newborn baby in the ward where medical students were delivering. There were not that many fatalities in the ward where midwives were delivering. So he wondered, why is this? And he looked a little more closely. And he found that midwives were coming after they finished their work in the kitchen. They must have made their dal sambar or whatever and come straight after washing their hands to deliver. But medical students came after their study of human anatomy. And you know how medical students study human anatomy? They dissect corpses, dead bodies. So they would dissect dead bodies, and with those hands, without washing them, they would come to deliver babies. Small wonder from today's knowledge that both the mother and the baby would die. But at that time, nobody knew, because they thought infection is transferred through the air. So Semmelweis was bold enough to guess. Maybe we are wrong. maybe infection is transferred through touch. So he just made a rule. He said everybody must wash their hands before they deliver babies. And having made that rule, once they followed it, lo and behold, overnight, he got equal number of success rate in both the wards.
Wonderful.
You would think that he would be awarded a prize and he would be rewarded. No. He was thrown out of his hospital by the management, who said, how dare you bring in a policy which goes against what we know today to be true, which is that infection is not transferred through touch, it is transferred through the air. So here you go. They fired him and he died in a lunatic asylum.
Oh my God.
It took 50 years or 60 years after his death for people to acknowledge that, yes, we need to wash our hands. Now, behind the simple practice of washing hands, there is such a powerful story.
Yes.
Behind every fact, plants make their own food, blah, 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 vaccine, this, that, every one of them has a beautiful story behind it. So storytelling is very much possible.
Very important, ma'am. So, ma'am, but it's not very common, you know. Normally, you know, even in classroom lectures, हमारा एक focus होता है कि ये topic complete कराना, ये derivation, ये chemical equation. So why? But you know, it should be more common, right?
It should be more common. So you hit the nail on the head. Teachers are under pressure from their heads of schools or from their parents, their students. Kitna portion cover kiya? How much have you finished? And have you that section, that school is doing this much, this much, this much. You're only stuck here. So they have to deal with all this.
Yeah.
So you need a very supportive management and a management which अड़े रहते हैं अपने philosophy पे. If you want us to just cover what's in the book, don't come to our school. That's not our focus. If schools are strong enough to take that stand, and if parents only choose such schools for their students, or then they don't complain if there are schools which are only covering the book, literally covering. Okay, the whole thing becomes one black box. So if that clarity is there, the problem is that we want everything. We want to have our cake and we want to eat it. We want our children to excel and we want them to be creative. We want them not to be pressurized and we want them to relax. We want everything.
Very true, ma'am. So, ma'am, like supposing like for chemistry, I will take a particular subject, you know, middle school, senior school, how can you teach chemistry? Can you give any subject rather, you know, biology, chemistry?
So chemistry, I always give this example because I was inspired to do chemistry by my own teacher. I learned the power of a teacher very, very early.
Wow.
And this is the way when I teach chemistry, in my very first class, this is how I introduced the subject. I tell them, I'm going to tell you a story about a non-metal, which is so poisonous. It's a greenish colored gas at room temperature. And it is so poisonous that in the Second World War, Germans rolled clouds of it on the ground to kill the enemy. Wow. There is a metal which is so corrosive and so highly reactive, you cannot touch it. If you touch it, it will react with the water in your skin and burst into flame and burn your skin.
Fabulous.
You cannot even keep it open in the air because it will catch fire with the moisture in the atmosphere. You have to keep it under oil. Keep it chup raho, sit under the oil.
Brilliant.
Now this metal and this non-metal, when they combine, the metal you cannot touch, the non-metal you dare not breathe. But the two, when they combine, they produce something you have to eat every day. If you don't add it to your food, you'll say tasteless.
The chat has already answered your question, ma'am.
This is not magic. My friends, tell me what is magic.
Absolutely.
This is chemistry. How many of you would like to learn?
Amazing, absolutely fabulous.
That's amazing.
Amazing. So, ma'am, how do you think the teachers can equip themselves, except from handling the management and the parents, if they get a little straight?
So, assuming they have supportive management, which is a big assumption.
Yeah.
They have supportive management and parents who understand that where the teacher is coming from. Teachers can equip themselves by two things. Yes, Bill Bryson, that's a good book. Brief History of Everything, but there's an even better book called Science, a History, which is it's like a novel, full of all these. It's by Gribben, John Gribben. But you don't have to go to books. You can nowadays. You all are so lucky at the press of a button. You get all these. So teachers can just go through one discovery, story of one discovery. Yeah. You don't need to become a pandit in the history of science. You're going to teach photosynthesis today. Go read up. How did they discover that plants make their own food? It won't take you more than half an hour. Yeah. Begin the story. And then tell the kids, I don't know the ending. Would you like to find out the ending? Kids will do it for you. They
Wow.
will.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, you think the outcome will be different, learning outcome, when you tell a story and when
Don't you think I want to turn it back to you? Instead of my telling you, children wash your hands every day. If you don't wash your hands, I will scold you. I tell you the story that I told you. How will the outcome be?
Brilliant. I think I'm going to remember it rest of my life now.
Not only that, you will not only remember to wash your hands, you will remember that behind every fact in my science textbook, somebody or somebody they labored. They worked. They struggled to
Stories
convince
are
people that they're
basically, they can actually inspire, they can
Yes.
thought provoking also for children also. If you just, like you said, you can leave them with an open-ended thing, you tell what happened next. Then
Yes.
they might come up with some logical explanations. That's
Or what do you think the scientist could have asked? What kind of question do you think he or she asked? And what do you think, having asked that question, what do you think they could do to find out? You make the whole thing into a participative journey.
Yes. So, there was this accidental discovery of penicillin. I'm
Yes.
a microbiologist basically, so I like to tell that story, because it was discovered in small petri plates. It's for fungal infection in bacterial culture. So he triggered, okay, what
Yes.
happened? Why these plates are spoiled? So
Yes.
that's totally antibiotic discovered
Serendipity.
Yes.
accidentally. So there's a brilliant story for that.
Yes. Yes.
That was fabulous, ma'am. I really loved it. So moving on to ma'am, Monica, ma'am. Now I'm going to really ask you. Math is
Yeah.
another difficult, subject for a lot of children and parents also to teach. And bringing creativity in math is a little difficult after primary class. In primary class, up till primary class, you have you can teach symmetry by folding papers, and you can do fractions by making a pizza thing. And but your forte is middle school and senior school. So how are you
Yeah, that's right.
integrating your thing into this? Like, what is the creativity addition here?
Okay. So the reason maths becomes so fearful, it actually internationally it's known that the point is fractions. That's when so many cumulative topics come. The children need to, and maths is stacked up. You cannot do fourth if third is not clear. You cannot do fifth if fourth is not clear. So many concepts are stacked up by fractions that the fear of math starts coming in. So my forte is middle school and high school. And what I did in these places is what the curriculum design that I have done is a kind of a balance of rigor as well as creativity. So without rigor, you cannot do math. So you will have to sit and do 20, 30 questions for the concept to take root in your mind. But without creativity, the interest won't come. So there are certain best practices which I found, which I discovered by teaching, in fact, teaching special needs kids. One of them, and I think some of them have been already shared by the esteemed other panelists. One of them is giving a perspective to the students. Like ma'am was saying, every maths topic has come because there's a reason behind it. So just to discover why has it even been invented. For example, calculus came into being during World War II because the weapons of mass destruction had to be very, very precise. And whenever such a problem comes in front of scientists in mankind, they look at mathematics to find the solution. So to find that precision, that if I am shooting, I want the bullet to hit exactly at this point, how do I get so precise? Calculus, it wasn't invented, but it definitely went further. Every subject, every branch of knowledge requires data analysis. So that's where equations and probability and statistics came forward. Probability is for future. When you have data, you have an equation, you want to know how is it going to act in future, you need probability. So when such perspective is given to the students, and once again, it doesn't need to be rocket science, one doesn't need to read too many books. Google has all information required, as I have seen in the past 15 years of freelancing curriculum designing. Google has all the information. If I need to know exactly why is slope even needed in mathematics, I can just go there and figure out that, okay, when houses with slopes, with roofs which are sloping are built, uh, there is depending on which part of the world the house is built, is the slope, the angle which the slope is giving is decided. So that gives a kind of a perspective. So the biggest question which comes in the minds of students is, why am I learning this? हम ये पढ़ क्यों रहे हैं? And
What
that
are
needs to
we
be
here?
answered.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I generally ask teachers in my interactions with them, are you a maths murderer or a maths creator? So if you tell children, for example, I ask them, if you're multiplying two fractions 1 by 2 into 1 by 3, answer is 1 by 6, why? And most of them will say, rule hai. I say, there, you have just murdered maths. And you have murdered because that's how you were taught by your teachers, and maybe they were taught by their teachers. So there's no blame game here. But if you say that, 1 by 2 into 1 by 3 means that if you have, let's say, a chapati, and I take 1/3 of it, from that 1/3, if I cut half, that portion is 1 by 2 into 1 by 3, or 1/6 of the whole.
Okay.
So you have suddenly given children a meaning to something, or a kind of a reasoning behind it, and therefore you become a maths creator. And in fact, in one of the workshops, I remember at the end of the workshop, I asked the teachers, I always do, that tell me one thing that you've picked up from this session which you're going to use in your classes. And one of the teachers said, I have just discovered that for the past 7 years, I have been murdering maths. And I need 3 days to absorb it and to completely change my ways. So don't ask me right now, what am I going to do in the class? Ask me after 3 days. So this is it. You need to give perspective. You need to give answer. Then there are children who are frightened. I've had children who were traumatized in the maths class. Children who wouldn't enter the class. They would be at the door the moment you say maths class. But like ma'am was saying, I have been very fortunate in working in schools where the management was empathic. There were schools with a heart, absolutely. So I realized that bringing things like art, music, drama, the entire non-scientific side, history, story writing, vocabulary, it was so amazing to do that. For example, the girl who was so traumatized, outside the class, she was amazing. She would give me a hug, but she would not enter the class. And I let her be. Till the day I said, okay, kids, you can maybe use color pencils and write an explanation of whatever you have learned just now. And that's the time she opened this big box of colors and she sat down the whole lesson. She just did one question, and I kind of had a breakthrough that, okay, colors is something that somewhere dissolved her fear. Similarly, role play. You take a question, take a word problem, which is a universally acknowledged difficult issue, and ask the children, pair up or sit in a group of 3 and role play. So Ram went to the market and bought this, and this was a 10% discount, and then Shyam bought it, and then Hari bought it. So the kids' minds are generally cognitively overloaded with so much of information. If they talk to each other, something which is universally known as think, pair, share, where 2 kids pair up and they talk to each other. So when you bring in these things, you are using all sides of the brain in order to teach in the class.
Wow.
Maths is predominantly left brain. And the kids who hate math, or the kids like you had shared, are frightened of maths, are generally students who are linguistically dominating. So you would probably be really good in English, in languages.
Okay.
You would have a flair for languages. So because language dominated kids think in full sentences, maths is symbols.
Okay,
So
that's a very interesting thing. Yeah.
if you bring strategies from languages and maths, for example, when you have taught some really painful topic, let's say how to add fractions with different denominators, ask the kids, write a letter, I used to say, to your granny or anyone who you love, and explain how to add 2 fractions with the different denominators.
Wow.
So the scientific minded kids would finish in 4 sentences and then sit, we are too good for this. Whereas the language dominated kids would go on and on 3, 4 pages. Dear Granny, did you know we learned something so amazing today? We thought this maths was a very boring subject, but this teacher gave us something very interesting. So the whole page is introduction, and then do you know how we add? And then at the end of it, they would say, okay, now I've understood how to solve this. So
So,
this creativity side, when it comes into the class,
so I'm sure I'm going to be
yeah,
your
you
next
have a
student,
question?
ma'am. I'm going to be your next student. That's for sure. Because I think I'm better in
Okay,
languages than math.
thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
ma'am,
So in
how do you, like you said, in a classroom mode, children can talk and share, but abhi it's online. Everything
yeah,
is online. So how can the teachers switch to this mode of learning through
okay,
online?
okay.
You know,
So one is what is called as GRR, gradual release of responsibility. I came to know the name later. It's in very simple words. It's I do, we do, you do. In most of the teachers are using Zoom, and it's easy to create breakout rooms. So one of the things the teachers can do is teach something, break out the rooms, and ask the kids to discuss the problems or the concept or something, and then everybody comes back from each group. One student shares. The idea is actually to shift most of the responsibility to the students to learn. The other way is flipping the class.
okay.
There's a great website called mathsisfun.com. In fact, I recommend it to anyone, even adults, when they say that, we really want to go back to maths. I say just go
Ma'am,
to
could
this
you just
website,
repeat
Maths is Fun,
people's,
and mathsisfun.com.
okay.
And teachers can take any topic and use this website or any online video available, and show it to the students, or send the link home before the class and ask them, from this video I would like you to answer these 5 questions. It never works if you give a video to students and say, "Pad lo."
Ah,
You have to give very specific, let's say 5 questions along with the video, which can be WhatsApp, and then say, when you come for the class on Zoom, we will have a discussion. Now, there will be some who would do it, there would be some who will not do it. But the joy of learning, which is created by those who do it and come, is something which generally carries on the rest. And there will always be some chunnumunus who will just not want to do it. So I think if you keep focusing on making the classes exciting, they generally, eventually, in my experience, nobody is left behind. So you can do I do, we do, you do. That's one. The second one is you can flip the class, which is very easy. Just WhatsApp. I think the entire mathematical knowledge from kindergarten to post graduation is available on internet. And people are churning videos after videos after videos, and sending something. This is the second thing. The third thing is you can ask children to write essays in math. Universally in online teaching, when I look at the maths groups, people are going on and on asking question about, how do I know the work has been done by the kids? How do I assess them correctly? Now, if you ask them to write an essay on what they have learned in a topic, that the likely, it's more likely that that would be the student's own work. We cannot always even guarantee 100% where the work is coming from. Ask students to write, ask students to videotape their work and maybe send that in the WhatsApp group or show it on the Zoom. Have discussions on Zoom, where students are talking to each other. Give the students projects such as which they can do inside their house itself, such as find area of your room that you are in, design your room in using a scale, and show that where they do ratio and proportion. It can be find height of your wall, which can be in trigonometry. Kitchen is a great place. I think kitchen is my favorite place to get examples, to do fractions, bake a cake with these proportions. And everybody, when they come to the class, they bring either the cake or anything else, whatever is suitable for the children. I have seen my colleagues sitting and making laddus with kindergarten kids. So you take coconut and you take sugar and you take ghee, and through that the children were learning various shapes.
oh,
So
wow, okay.
a simple project can be given to children which they do at home. Now, the thing is, which I learned when I was teaching in the IB school, is something called as evidence of work. So I would just ask the children, I want to know that this is your work. How would you convince me that this is your work? And I wouldn't think of it. I wouldn't say that, I need a letter from my parents or I need a photograph. I would leave it to them. I would accept your work if there is evidence. So some children videotaped themselves working and sent it. Some children took a whole photographs of all their work, including their calculation, took a picture, created a picture book and sent it. Some
Brilliant.
children recorded themselves. Some children brought, let's say, their parents' audio, that I swear or I am guaranteeing that this is their work. So I think what I call this is, if you spice up your maths class, every lesson, it never gets dull and boring.
Yeah, that's
And it's something which can be done like in every lesson. And then, as a teacher had called me recently from Faridabad, and she wanted to know what to do about online teaching. And there are still those children who are, classified as special needs. I think if what one thing teachers can do is bring in a certain compassion in the classes. One of the things can be done is, let's say you're recording all your sessions, have a Google Drive where all your recordings just go there, and parents have a link. If the class is missed out or if a child needs to go through it again, parents have that link and they can go and watch the video again. The other thing which went a big hit for her, which is something teachers can think about, is have remedial classes. So let's say if you have 40 classes, 40 children in a class, and you have done all your talking, there will be guaranteed 10 to 15% of kids who wouldn't have understood fully. So maybe once a week or twice a week. Now that the workload of the teachers is not as much as it is in schools, the workload is more of the house and managing the whole family. But if it is possible for the teacher, if it is possible in the time, for this particular teacher, it became very, very successful. She would say, okay, I have remedial classes where, let's say, maximum 10 kids can come. And that is the class where you forget all your stories and songs and you go straight to maths, the procedures of maths, which the kids have missed out. And patiently teach them that, because that rigor side can be missed out by children of special needs, because there is so much of information and they are not able to process information. It needs to be broken into, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, like that. These are some ideas. I hope
so
they are.
parental support also is required when you do such practical activities at home, or you're suggesting such practical activities at home. We would love to hear, even, there would be so many examples coming, they would want to know what kind of examples at home the educators can, use to teach math. So we will come back to you a little later, ma'am. We can move
Thank you.
to, yeah, brilliant. I mean, I've never seen math being taught in such a way. Actually, I was really scared of my math teacher, to be very frank. So I think
It's always the teacher's fault. Actually, it's always the teacher's fault. Don't worry. It's maths. Maths is like that.
And another thing was the grades. When you do a question wrong and you continuously start doing it wrong, it creates phobia. So I can really relate to those children who are suffering, but I'm sure as you as educator, they would be loving maths. And in fact, I'm going to enroll in your classes very soon.
Okay, sure.
So moving on to Anupama Mehtani, ma'am. Ma'am, of course, storytelling is a brilliant tool, and obviously you will be advocating that in this session. But also we would like to, know about other tools that you've been using in your school to make the session more interesting.
Yeah. So first of all, I think because of this lockdown, it's very unnerving to teach to a computer. You're not seeing your students, so you do not know their reaction, whether are they understanding. And many times for a teacher, my next sentence actually depends on their reaction, whether they're understanding, whether they are not, or do I need to elaborate this particular thing a little more. So that definitely is very unnerving for all of us, I guess. I was trying to think, how do I make it more interesting, my online classes? So definitely if I'm using a PPT, I don't want it to be very cluttered, because for student, to look around and see there's so many concepts, right out there. I try to set up some expectations beforehand, like coming from them, like the students, okay, how do you want your class to be, so they generally come up with their own, little bit of their expectations. I do not try to be very overpowering on the screen. I want them to say something. So try to scan, but unfortunately in a grid where I can just see a few students. So I try to scan into the participants and try to pick out a student who is generally very quiet, try to pick on, such students. Then I try to, of course, use active learning methods. I try to use a hook. I can use, sometimes read a poem to start a topic. Sometimes of course, a video. Sometimes YouTube I actually use. In fact, in grade 9, we have this particular topic about Helicobacter pylori. So that's a bacteria which actually, initially it was thought that it causes the stress, the ulcers, the peptic ulcers. So initially, no one knew that it was because of this bacteria. So there were these scientists, Warren and Marshall, and so they said it is because of this particular bacteria. And the ulcers are not because of stress. The peptic ulcers, it's not because of stress. The gastritis is not because of stress, but it is because, so what these people, both of these scientists did, they actually later on got the Nobel Prize for it. They drank up. They actually put it in a wine glass, this bacteria, and they drank it up, and then they treated themselves using antibiotics. So it's such a beautiful story. So and when I introduce, so when we're talking about health, we're talking about viruses. So when we talk about this, I try to first initiate dialogue with them. I try to show them. Now of course I've looked for a video, look and talk about it. But then what I do is I use something which is known as a Padlet. So I make it a little more ethical also. So do you think what they did is right? I mean, drinking up something and causing. So a Padlet is something where I share it with the students. It's like a screen, and every student, once they've seen the video, and they then write their comments on it. So that way I do get back, are they understanding?
So
Are they even the ethical?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So where
Yeah.
they say things, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So then sometimes, just like I think you have been using, I use Slido in Google Slide, try to ask them a question. This is sometimes even to make out whether are they understanding, what I'm trying to teach. It could be something very small. It could be, then sometimes I use Mentimeter. Then for ecology, we're talking about, so what I do is I use puzzles. So recently I also have been introduced into IB, and I love the way IB, goes about, makes the children think, reflect, it's so beautiful. So I use my ideas from there. And so it's called an escape room, where we talk about an situation, an ecology situation. Sometimes I show them a YouTube video. Sometimes I show them something on pollution. And then we start asking questions from there, give them puzzle, one puzzle leads to another, so, and the children, they are so excited about, Mom, I got this. Okay, now we're moving on to the next one, the next step, so
That's
keep
an
on.
absolutely fabulous way. Yes.
So that then sometimes I also do something I did once for evolution. I used a project-based learning where I said, okay, there is a particular being from outer space who's trying to send you messages. And it's actually very common, and so it's a descendant of the modern cat. And so do you make a presentation, try to, or if you can, even draw, what do you think that, in the present scenario, how do you think it's going to adapt itself to this environment compared to where it has actually come from, So
That's a very imaginative.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so
amazing.
something
Yes.
similar we also do in our sessions is, we were making the children do catapult activity, which is very
Okay.
normal for potential and kinetic energy. So they're supposed to assemble a catapult. So we don't
Mhm.
give them the thing before, we don't show them. We just tell them, you know, you are locked down in a haunted house and you're closed in a room, and which has a one ventilator up, which is closed, window pane, and you have certain things in your room, like, you know, you have a ball and a plank and a rope and maybe a you know, a big elastic. So how you know, break and
Think.
go through it? So you know
Ah.
what, and then we say, okay, if they don't come up with answers, then we'll tell them, have you played Angry Birds? Then they can little bit connect. Then again we
Ah.
tell them, have you seen Bahubali? So they connect, you know.
Wonderful.
Potential
Wonderful.
energy, and this is all, you know, movies, and you know, give an impact that connects them with the
Yes, yeah. But ultimately, even in these online classes, I always have a plan B. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
which is very important.
So I just connect with the audience with another poll, ma'am. I
Yep,
think you
sure,
have
sure. Yep, yep.
already answered one of the questions. Just a minute. This is about, okay. So the question says, what is the biggest challenge educators are facing dealing with the online teaching? So missing face-to-face collaborative learning, hands-on learning. So I think that is the problem. You know, missing the face-to-face connect is a big, because you know, that gives us the next target.
Yes.
Well, yes
She
and
said,
not.
yeah, I think, yeah, she said it very beautifully that one step leads to the next. She said it
Right.
very beautifully that from the answer, that one answer leads to the next
Yeah.
thing.
So we get them into the thinking group.
Thinking mode. Yes.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Amazing.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
So, ma'am, anything else you need to share? Or,
That's a please go ahead.
So I think Padlets are a very good idea, you know.
Yeah, yes.
Very innovative. So Simi ma'am is now going to sum up the entire session of her storytelling mode,
Yes.
and tell us about how it can be used as a cross-curricular, you know, thing,
Yeah.
storytelling, yes. And how can we get the best outcomes, you know, learning outcomes from children? So over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it was really, really interesting listening to each and every one and all the able panelists out there. It was quite awakening. Yeah, and ma'am did say that, you know, math has to do with the left side of your brain. Then I will say, I do not have the left side of my brain because because maths for me is very difficult. And so even the sabzi wala tends to gain from it. Uh, so so for me, yeah, maths has been a great challenge. And how I started to use stories, when I started telling stories 27 years ago, it was just that I'm going to be a storyteller. But over the period of time, as we moved and we started to use stories in different forms and things, I think it was destined that I was a storyteller. And I tend to, you know, have this question, why is this happening this way? So when you have that questioning mind, that is also a result of storytelling, because one thing would lead to the other. And stories are everywhere. We don't have to refer to a book. I think even if we look into our own lives, there's so many instances. When ma'am was particularly speaking about maths, I was remembering my days at school, how I was always thrown out of the class because I could not understand the concepts. And so I was always an outstanding student. Until and unless about 8 years ago, when I was doing this project with the school in Jammu, where we were incorporating stories and performing arts from grade 1 to grade 5 across different subjects. So that was the time when I realized that stories are actually so powerful. They can be used as an educational tool. And from the very beginning, I feel that if we entertain people, they get engaged. When they get engaged, education happens. But we tend to go the other way around. When in difficult times like this, times are really, really difficult. not only for teachers. My heart goes to them because they are doing their household chores, and they're also
Yeah.
training themselves continuously. uh, I think it's 48 into 7 and not 24 into 7 for them. And they're training themselves, and they are going in for mock sessions, and then next morning they're fresh. Yeah, here we are, this is the concept, and go ahead and do. And don't forget the research that they have to do while designing the lesson plans for the students. Yeah, because now the parents are there, so they are overlooking whether the child is listening to the teacher or not carefully. For the parents also, because they are also engaged with their own work, plus keeping an eye on kids, plus, and it's so difficult to manage your own child. So in times like this, stories are the saving grace.
Yes. Children
Trust.
love stories.
You don't have to give them homework after
Yeah.
that. You tell them a story and just tell them, okay, which is your favorite character and why. You're sorted. Within half an hour, you will start getting the answers. And otherwise, we have to run behind children and say, okay, please do your homework. Kidhar hai, kya hai? So stories are actually a big relief. I'm not only talking about stories as a cross-curriculum tool, I am speaking of stories as a pedagogy. This is the time to use stories as a pedagogy. And coming back to my story that I was telling you about Jammu School. So there, from grade 1 to grade 5, what we used to do was I used to go there once in 3 months for 4 days. First 3 days I used to do the classroom evaluations, and in the afternoons we used to have training modules, and the last day I used to give them the feedback, and we used to conclude the entire session. So in one of my classroom assessments, which was for grade 5 mathematics, I was like, God, what am I going to do? Because to khud hi maths nahi aata. So how am I going to evaluate what she's doing? But I said, never mind. I have to only concentrate on performing arts and stories. So let me just sit and do my bit. But that was an enlightening episode into my life. At the age of, I think I was around 40 something, I learned factors when I don't need them because I don't have to get marks. I learned factors. And how this teacher beautifully did. I think somewhere the teachers can take this as an example and use it in their class. So in a class of about, say, 35, 40 kids, the teacher asked them to divide themselves as to who were the kids who would be interested to act, who would be interested to dance, who would be interested to compose music, who would be interested to do lyrics bit, to do the script writing and things like that. And then they came across with this entire idea of doing up a story. And that story was about a mother who had 2 daughters, and she was a tailor. So she used to stitch clothes and earn her livelihood. So one day, these 2 girls, they come back home, and they see the mother right at 11 o'clock in the morning stitching. She says, Ma, why are you doing this so early? She says, no, I have a very urgent assignment to complete. I have finished everything in the kitchen except for those 12 glasses that need to be put on the shelf. Can you please go and put them? So what that scene 2 is, both the daughters are going into the kitchen, and the elder one, she takes those 12 glasses and put them in the shelf. So there is this girl standing with on the blackboard with the chalk, and she writes on the blackboard, 12 into 1 is equal to 12. Then the younger one comes up and she says, okay, let's see how many can we put in 2 rows, but they need to be equal. So obviously 2 into 6 is okay. How many can fit equal in 3 rows and 4 rows? And then she kept writing. So 3 into 4 is equal to 12. 6 into 2 is equal to 12. And then at the end, she says, so now you see 12, 6, 2, 3, 4 are the factors of 12. I said, damn, is maths that easy? And sitting over there, trust me, I didn't need a notebook or a textbook. I started to calculate my age, and I said, okay, what is the factor of my age? What is the factor of the total of my car's registration number, my mobile phone number, So it was so interesting, and maths has to be interesting because it is a very practical subject. But as ma'am very rightly said, the way it is taught, let's not be critical only about maths. History,
Hmm.
who is going to remember those dates? You know. So I was always taught how to remember dates. Is benchmark is the year you were born. From that year, how many years
Back.
before was, history that happened? And that was the clue to get to remember the dates, and it was so easy to remember dates. Teaching geography, teaching history, any subjects across any grades can be made very, very interesting if there is a story. And you need not have a very big story to it. It could be a small little anecdote that can spark the interest in the topic that is going to be delivered. So, and also what is very important is these days, like when I'm asked to do a virtual storytelling session, it is a nightmare because I'm so much of a people's person. I would love to see my audience. I would love to see the reactions. And now I miss all of that. So I just close my eyes and I think of, before I go in for a session, I think of the best session that I've ever had, the most interactive one. So I think with our teachers also we need to do that. And if you narrate a story, it immediately connects you to the audience and the audience to you, because then the story becomes the mediator.
Yeah, that's very true, ma'am.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Very nicely.
Very, very
said.
beautiful.
Yeah, that connection, that bridging has to be through the story.
Through
So,
the story.
Yeah.
even if it is for smaller children, elder children, some teenagers, they would not get convinced about even washing hands. They said, okay, we don't care. But if ma'am's story, Nirja ma'am's story can be told to them, I'm sure they're going to be very, very particular about, washing hands now. So it's such a beautiful way. If you
Yeah.
explain it with logic in your story, I'm sure it's going to make a bigger impact and a better learning outcome. So, ma'am,
And to all the teachers, I always say, do not bother about the syllabus, because people do think, oh, if you're going to tell stories, it is going to take time. How will we be able to finish our curriculum in the given time? But just try this out once. Trust me, you don't even need another class to do the revision. It is instant feedback for the
so
teacher
that's why we remember.
evaluate as to how much has the child understood. Like for this one example I would like to give, once I was telling the story of three little pigs, and after that I wanted to do an activity to teach them the concept of light and heavy. So I had given the kids hay flakes, pieces of wood, pebbles, stones, and I told them to throw it in water. And when they threw them in water, obviously stones went down, wooden planks went down, but the hay flakes were floating. So the kids were like, why is this one not going down? So I said, yeah, so let's apply pressure, release your hand. And they came up, they sprung up, and so they said, oh, this is so Besharam, it's coming back again and again. So I said, no, it's not Besharam, it is light. So the kid looks at me like this, huh? What is light and what is she talking about? So I immediately asked the kid to give me both his palms, and on one palm I placed the flake, and on the other the wooden plank, and I said, which is lighter? He said both. He's right, because he can hold both of them easily. And I, with my adult mind, was expecting an answer that he's going to say that it's the hay flake which is lighter. So even for us as adults, it's important to provide and keep our adult mind at a side. And it is an instant feedback for us to understand that with the best of our efforts, we're trying to reach out to their kids. But sometimes, something, sometimes we're not able to find out whether they have learned the correct thing or not. So the moment this kid said that both of them are right, so I said, yeah, you're right. But out of these two, so again, he gives me a look, and then I took the wooden plank out and I placed it with a little heavy stone, and I placed my palm under his palm, and I said, now which is lighter? So he said, the flake. So I was not only able to correct my question and my thought process, but I also had an opportunity to provide the solution there and then. And not only that, we went a way ahead. So I said, okay, now this is light, this is lighter, and this is the lightest.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to teach him degrees of comparison while telling a story, while doing mathematics. And when they threw the first kid, when he threw the stone into the water, some water came out, which we collected. And then I told them, this
Volume.
is mass,
Okay.
the
That's
Archimedes principle. So later on in life, when he's going to study about the Archimedes principle, he'll probably remember this particular story that he actually lived. So yeah, stories are a great tool for
absolutely
learning.
brilliant,
You
ma'am.
can include
Uh,
all the 9 multiple intelligences into it. And for all the 3 learning stylers who are sitting in a class together, this is one and probably the only tool which can cater to all the 3 learning styles. And learning is fun. It's fun for you, it's fun for them.
Yeah, that's very
Yes.
true. So we'll quickly do a poll. There was this question coming that we have to complete this syllabus too. So fortunately, with this, fortunately or unfortunately, with this pandemic coming till 8th class, at least we have lesser syllabus to teach. So stories can be used very, very interestingly, you know, and we have more. Educators have more time to elaborate on an idea. It can be thought provoking. They can be inspired by stories, and they can trigger your curiosity also, you know, the children's curiosity. So it has been a really, really brilliant session. Thank you for being there, ma'am, and being with us. It's really been an enlightening session, one of the best webinars we have ever had. And see, we have been, there is one question that was coming on my WhatsApp also. So ma'am, this is you know, what tools are you exactly using for videos, you know, how, or Padlets? What exactly is Padlets? You know, a little bit elaboration on that, because someone's asking me on the.
Okay, okay. So basically a Padlet, so you need to register on the Padlet. And so a Padlet is basically like a kind of a screen. And you tell the students about, so you get a number, you basically get your Padlet identification number. So when you tell the students that, and you can create your own Padlet. So for every class, I can have my own Padlet. I can have a timeline.
Okay.
I can have, you know, like bricks. So one below the other, their ideas.
So it's
So,
basically an app, you're saying, you know, it's
yes,
an app
yes,
that you can download
yes.
on Android and iPhone.
And you can, so the students, everyone who is now hooked on to that, is on that Padlet, can put their ideas. So like you're having this chat right here on the side. So same way, this, after my class, so I did it even even with my grade 12, I said, online classes, yay, online. So immediately, you know, so they started writing their own opinion. And I come as a teacher, I see all their opinions on one single screen. So like, so I come to know exactly what they're
So if you're telling a story and you put a question in,
yes,
and
yes,
then you can get the immediate answers.
answer back,
And
yes,
you can
yes.
find out whether they've understood the
To
idea.
it, yes, yes,
It's a
yes.
brilliant way, ma'am. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for being there. We have exceeded a little bit, but I really would want to, you know, wanted to go on. Actually, there's so much I have to learn from everyone, and
So thank you for
just
giving
stay
us this
safe.
opportunity.
This
Things
was
have opened
very,
up,
very
and I would really
nourishing.
request everyone to stay at home and be safe. Thank
Yes.
you so much for a wonderful
Thank you.
session.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you
Thank
so much.
Thank you, everyone. This is
Thank you so
amazing.
much. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
giving us
Stay,
this
stay healthy and
opportunity.
safe.